Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, flying solo. So the Warriors officially end their week-long road trip 0-5. They lost to the Pelicans in New Orleans 114-105. And, again, before this road trip, I was pretty optimistic that they would do well. There were some pretty young, weak teams, weak in terms of record and experience, but of course high on talent because there's a lot of talent in the NBA right now. And I thought at best, they could go maybe 4-1. I thought at worst it would be 3-2, but it's 0-5, and the Warriors are now 3-7 heading back to the Bay. I know it's early. I just thought I would take a quick peek at the Western Conference playoff standings just for fun, right? Right now, the Warriors are in 12th place. There's a bunch of other games going on right now still, but they are 3-7 in the 12th slot behind OKC, who is 4-4, behind the Timberwolves, who are also 4-4. They're both tied kind of in that 10th spot, although I guess the Timberwolves have the tiebreaker. And the Warriors are 3 games behind the Nuggets for the non-play-in playoff spot at number 6, the last one there. That's just for fun. That's not going to matter, hopefully. The Warriors, they rested their vets, their starters. The only starter that played was Kevon Looney. The only other vet that played was JaMychal Green, and he didn't really even play that much. And this is what I said I wanted, what I was hoping for, what I was expecting, what I thought they probably were going to do earlier in this road trip. I thought they would do this in the Pistons game, but of course, after that Charlotte game, it seemed like they wanted to win, and the starters played, and of course they lost. But Kerr started. Jonathan Kuminga, Lamb, Kevon Looney, Jordan Poole, and Moses Moody, with James Wiseman coming off the bench, as well as Ty Jerome. They played pretty decently overall. I thought that Kuminga, he's obviously the guy that we have all wanted to see. He played a ton of minutes, 38 minutes. Perfect. That's what I wanted. I wanted that guy to get reps, see the pictures, all that stuff, just get some run. He was 7 for 12, 1 for 3 from 3, 3 for 4 from the line, 4 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 3 turnovers, 4 fouls, 18 points plus 2. That's not bad. That's pretty good for a guy who hasn't played many meaningful minutes in quite a while. And Kuminga, he showed you again what he can do. Yes, he makes some mistakes. Yes, his handle isn't where it needs to be for what ultimately his role in this offense should be in the future. But he makes things happen. He puts pressure on the rim. And I think the Warriors have been missing some of that energy. So hopefully this is a way for him to get some minutes normally when the starters do play. And like I said in the last episode, I'm assuming that Kerr can find minutes somewhere. He said in pressers since that Orlando game that he'll play anybody, and I think Kuminga is a somebody that should get some time out there. He had a couple nice moves. He blazed by Zion twice. I haven't watched him play much this season, but his defense was just, matador defense. He wasn't even pressing up on Kuminga, and then Kuminga would just go by him, and that's cool. That's great. I'm guessing something's wrong with Zion Williamson because that just didn't make a lick of sense, but that's the kind of stuff that Kuminga can do. And of course, he gets to the line. He had only 4 free throws, but it's that pressure on the rim and forcing other teams to react instead of just kind of, oftentimes dancing outside. That's what the Warriors have been kind of doing lately because they haven't been really pushing too much, especially on the second unit. This was a game that the Warriors were definitely in, that they could have won. I don't want to say should have, because the Pelicans played pretty much all their guys, and I was wrong. Brandon Ingram is back, and he looks pretty good out there. I thought Kuminga played him decently. You know, Ingram is just a little bit more polished, and he hit some tough shots. So it is what it is. Good defense, but better offense. Moody was his solid self, 4 for 9, 1 for 3 from three, 5 of 5 from the line, plus 10 on the night, 14 points, 1 assist, 4 rebounds. That's pretty good. It's funny. I don't talk about Moses Moody that much because he's just so consistent. So it's like I don't have a ton of complaints about the dude. And sometimes, he doesn't do anything too spectacular. He's just solid. But it's always interesting for me because Trey Murphy III, who is on the Pelicans and was drafted a few spots, I believe, after Moses Moody, he's a guy that I really was hoping that the Warriors might draft in Moody's slot at number 14 because he's 6'8". He's one of those dudes who was like 6'2", and even actually he had a couple growth spurts, and he had guard skills and he could shoot, and then he blew up to 6'8". So those are always nice dudes to draft, because no matter what size they end up, those small man skills always seem to be a benefit when you blow up to 6'8" or taller, right? Because, throughout NBA history, or at least the last 30 years or so, it's like Scottie Pippen had that kind of growth spurt. Dennis Rodman had that. David Robinson, Anthony Davis. So falling into that category, I thought that Trey Murphy had a good kind of pedigree in that respect. And I'm always going to keep an eye on him because he, in a way, is similar to Moses Moody, but taller and maybe right now actually a better shooter. Some of the gripes I've had with Moody are that, he's a little bit slow of foot. He's become a little bit more craftier getting his shot off and getting to the basket, but he isn't the quickest dude beating guys off the dribble, and sometimes he can get beaten defensively, and his shot is maybe a little slow, and that's not a huge gripe, but sometimes when he catches the ball, he doesn't have that quick release trigger that, of course, guys like Steph and definitely Clay have. So, it is what it is, and I'm not going to knock Moody because he's constantly working on his game and developing it, but just some things that I noticed. But I'll always track Moody versus Trey Murphy III. James Wiseman, he got in there and he played 17 minutes, only took 1 shot, 3 for 4 from the line, not bad, 6 boards, 2 assists, 5 points. Now, he's caught a lot of flack, and, he's had a rough road trip overall, but I mean, I still believe in the kid, and I will always believe in the kid. But, if you have to take some of his minutes and give them to Kuminga, then so be it, right? It's telling that to close this game, Kerr went with Looney. And, maybe that's kind of obvious because Looney is a starter on the championship team, but Looney doesn't close very often, right? And I actually felt that maybe that hurt the Warriors a little bit because Larry Nance, he got everything he wanted in the lane, in the Warriors zone, in the closing minutes. And I don't know, maybe Wiseman could have been a better deterrent than Looney because, sometimes once Nance got in position, found like a seam, an open spot, it was tough for Looney to recover. Maybe Wiseman's size could have helped with that, prevented some easy shots, because once Nance got the ball, it was like, okay, this guy's just going to dunk over somebody or drive. That's not necessarily what lost them the game, but it could have made a difference towards the end. One thing about Wiseman, though, too, it's like, I don't know if people in the NBA are good at throwing entry passes anymore. There were a handful of times where it looked like James Wiseman had some low post position and they didn't give it to him. And I think part of that is because the nature of the NBA has gone away from post play so much that it's gone away from the lower levels like college, G League, high school even. And people aren't really that great at throwing entry passes. So I don't know. I'm sure that probably frustrated Wiseman a little bit. He only had one shot, but that's something for me like to keep an eye on in general. Jordan Poole, he played 38 minutes, only 5 for 18, 3 for 10 from three, hit all 7 free throws, 9 assists though, 2 steals, but 5 turnovers, 20 points, only -1 on the night. I mean, we're seeing him have ups and downs. He had a couple really good games against Charlotte and Detroit. He was basically like the main bright spot in those games. And he can have those flashes. It's like, remember that Detroit game where he drained like 12 points in a row? That was impressive to me because now I mean, we've known he can get hot, but that is very Clay and Curry-esque, not putting him up there to that level yet. Of course, it'll take a long time, but just seeing that he has that ability to just get streaky hot. But he hasn't been shooting the best this year. And, hopefully he's working that stuff out. I've talked before about how sometimes he gets a little dribble happy and he gets stuck. And that's a source of a lot of his turnovers. So that's part of his growth overall moving forward. And also, all the carry calls and the travels. I mean, something that got called a lot was like, someone catching the ball at the 3-point line and then putting the ball on the deck, but moving their feet first, which is a call that, I mean, a lot of guys in the NBA do that, but when you're young, that's a call that the refs will blow the whistle on that pretty dang often. And Kuminga got called for that. Poole got called for that. And I think even Zion Williamson got called for that. So it's something where, Poole's going to have to adapt if they start calling him for more carries. I mean, the bread and butter of Poole's game is his crafty shiftiness, right? And they didn't call that kind of thing last season when Poole kind of broke out a little bit. But his ability to let go left, right, fake people out, that relies on his handle. And if they start calling that more often, then, he's going to have to adjust. But for me, it's like Poole having more consistency and Poole getting more solid on defense and not picking on him. Everybody has had defensive issues on this team all season long, especially this road trip. But, you notice sometimes Poole kind of being a little bit late on rotations or taking some risks here and there. So just that's part of it, right? He's just 23 years old. He's got this contract, but hopefully, and we've seen over the years that he is committed to improving. Hopefully he continues to do that because, he could, I mean, imagine him when he's like even 25, right? I mean, Brandon Ingram is 26 and people laud him now, but I think Poole, the way he's been going, I have no doubts he can get there. So just getting more consistent and, not just dribbling into traffic and then, having that wide pivot foot stance and looking for somebody to bail him out. I mean, I think that's one thing he needs to figure out a little bit. I mean, sometimes when he can find somebody to pass it to, like under the basket, he hit JaMychal Green and stuff. And throughout the season, he's hit guys like Wiseman. But sometimes when there's no bailout, it's like, okay, that's a turnover. One thing about Poole, though, too, it's like in this game, I like watching him play against CJ McCollum because CJ McCollum is obviously like one of the comps for Jordan Poole in terms of style of play, that kind of herky jerky, get crazy shots off, can get super hot and all that jazz. And it's interesting because you see a lot of similarities out there, right? This craftiness and, ways to get your shot off when you're not like the biggest or the quickest. So he's got a ways to go. Jordan Poole does, but I think he can get there. And I've said this before. It's like, it's funny because as Poole developed and kind of grew for me, and this is going to sound weird, but like in that play-in year where the Warriors lost to the Grizzlies, then the Lakers, and the Phoenix Suns made the finals. I remember seeing Cameron Payne in the playoffs and thinking like, oh, that's a decent comp for what Poole could be coming off the bench the following season. And then Poole obviously looked better than that. And then it became like CJ McCollum. And then, Some people say like maybe Jamal Crawford, but CJ McCollum is like right there for me in terms of that. The next level would be Jamal Murray, or at least Jamal Murray before the ACL. Haven't seen him much since, but just that is probably, like, in my opinion, Jordan Poole's ceiling, right? I think he's tracking to be like CJ, but it's early, and we'll see it all evolve. NBA fans, the wait is over. Basketball is back, so tip off the season with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can make any $5 NBA moneyline bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Check this out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings up to 100% with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, opt in, and place a stepped-up same-game parlay today. With payouts bigger than ever, DraftKings Sportsbook is where I go to bet on the NBA. Obviously, I ride or die with your Golden State Warriors. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TBPN. Make any $5 bet this week and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code TBPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Ty Jerome and Anthony Lamb played a bunch. They both shot really dang well. So, props to those guys, those two-way guys, for actually taking advantage of the minutes. I didn't think that they were that good of shooters overall, but Lamb was 6 for 9 in 37 minutes, 4 for 6 from 3 boards, 2 assists, 3 steals, plus 5 on the night, 16 points. And Ty Jerome played 32 minutes, 7 for 12, 2 for 6 from 3, 2 for 2 from the line, 6 boards, 5 assists, -7, 18 points. I kind of like this Ty Jerome guy. My buddy Aram in Toronto put me onto him, and I was like, I have no idea who this guy is. But he's scrappy. He's like that scrappy little dude that other teams have, like TJ McConnell types, or even in this game, Alvarado. But the difference is that Ty Jerome's 6'5", and I kind of like that. Once Dante DiVincenzo comes back and gets healthy, though, Ty Jerome is like maybe your 12th guy, 12th, 13th guy. Yeah, I'll take that. That's not bad, as a two-way. He plays hard. He's a lot craftier than I thought, and he has decent touch from random spots. He'll hit floaters, he'll hit like fadeaways, and he'll hit threes, he'll hit a bunch of those. So that's not bad. It's funny. It's like the Warriors, they were close. They were ahead after one, right? They were up by 1, 27-26. And then they got behind, and then it looked like it was going to be, over, but they just kept pushing and pushing, and they were there at the end. Honestly, like, we got Patrick Baldwin Jr. minutes and Ryan Rollins minutes, and I like both those guys. Baldwin only played 4 minutes, missed his 1 3-pointer, was -13. And Ryan Rollins, he played 9. He came back in the second half. He was 2 for 4, 1 for 2 from 3, 2 for 2 from the line, -20 though, and 7 points. So honestly, it's like the Warriors were up by 1 at the end of 1. Rollins had closed out the first quarter, but then Kerr put Baldwin in with Rollins, and instantly the Pelicans, they went on a 12-0 run to start the second quarter. And not piling it all on them, because, it's just it's almost like a throwaway game in some respects, just to get the young guys some run and the vets some rest. But that's kind of where they, just got run. I thought that, when Kuminga came on the court, he made things happen. He's an exciting player, explosive, and he gets the other team on their heels. They have to cover him. They have to guard him. And I think this game showed that he can contribute. He may not have the point forward handle. He may not have the ability to run a team like an Andre Iguodala, or, be Draymond Green's instant replacement at power forward. But, he deserves minutes. He deserves to play. And at the expense of whom? That's above my pay grade. But like I said, I will take minutes from Wiseman. I'll take minutes from JaMychal Green. I mean, JaMychal Green playing, to me, that's a little bit political, because he's the vet who came with, maybe, I don't know if he had a promise of playing time, but he came on a pretty cheap deal. And I don't know if Kerr wants to stick him on the bench in favor of Kuminga, but me personally, I have nothing against Michael Green. I like what he brings, kind of like brings his lunch pail and all that stuff. But Kuminga deserves to play, and that's where I'll leave it right then and there. The Warriors, they hopefully just go home, go back to the Bay. They have a pretty easy schedule next week. Easy meaning only 2 games. So they play Sacramento at home on Monday, the 7th, and then they play the Cavs, who are really good, looking really good, young and explosive. They get them, I believe, on Friday. So that should be really interesting. I'm really curious, what Warriors team are we going to see in those 2 games? The Kings are a team that they should handle, and the Cavs are a team that not necessarily they should handle, but the way they've been playing, they should not. But who they really are, they should be able to take care of that game. But a long way to go with all that stuff. Hopefully Kerr makes some adjustments. Like I said, he needs to change it up a little bit. This actually gave the Warriors, it felt like a different vibe, right? Because it had been like the same old story throughout the first 4 games of this road trip. So hopefully Kerr has some thoughts and some ideas on what to do next, the coaching staff and all that jazz. And, go from there, regroup, reassess, reset, flush this road trip, man. That's it. You could sit there and be like, 0-5, that's terrible. Yeah, it sucks. But there's a long way to go. Come back to the Bay, work on some stuff, reset mentally and physically, get the emotion out of it and just move it along. That's all you got to do. And I think they can. All right. Well, that is another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Patrick Epino or at Oakland Warriors. Check out our YouTube channel where you can watch this episode, youtube.com/Oakland Warriors. Check us out at oaklandwarriors.com, and be sure to tell your fellow Warrior fan friends to tune in and listen. The Oakland Warriors podcast is produced by National Film Society and is a part of the Basketball Podcast Network. And if you're so inclined, please do leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you want to leave us a nice review saying good stuff about the show on Apple Podcasts, that would be hugely, hugely appreciated, and it would be very, very helpful. Thanks. That's it.
Music in this episode provided by Paper Sun. Special thanks to Paul Amardo for production support. See you next time.